Good evening. Today is Tuesday, April 5th, 2022. Welcome to the school board regular meeting. The time is now 6 p.m. The school board would like to take this moment to respectfully acknowledge we are residing on the traditional land of the Dene people. Our mission is to provide an excellent, equitable education in a safe, supportive environment so all students will succeed and contribute to a diverse and changing society. Mrs. Smith will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Tuttle, could we get the roll call, please?
Mr. Rose is expected. Colonel Williamson by Zoom. Colonel Williamson,
Here.
thank you. Colonel Surrey by Zoom,
Here.
thank you. Mr. Sampson is expected. Mrs. Matheson is excused. Mr. Doran,
Here.
thank you. Mrs. Sanderson,
Here.
thank you. Ms. Marati,
Here.
thank you. Mrs. Smith,
Here.
thank you. Mrs. Luke,
Here.
thank you. The board has a quorum.
Thank you. ASAA, First National Bank, Alaska, 2022 World Language Declamation State Champions. Core value, maintain high expectations and educational opportunities to inspire high achievement. The ASAA, First National Bank, Alaska, 2022 World Language Declamation State Champions will be recognized. Aline Julian, Ben Eielson Junior Senior High School teacher and World Language Declamation, goodness gracious, Declamation coach will make the presentation. If you can come up to the podium, please.
Don't need, okay. Thank you for allowing our first place winners to come tonight. There are 4 categories at the state language competition. We only had Spanish 1 this year. Normally I bring my French students before you as well, but we didn't have French this year. But I want to point out that although you only recognize our first place winners, of the 4 categories at state, we also got 4 second place winners and 3 of the 4 third place winners. So we got 11 of the 12 possible awards. Our first place winners, we got several of them here this evening. Some of them couldn't make it because coming out from Eielson's pretty far. But they worked very hard all year practicing and drilling and practicing. And in the first category, which is trivia, which is memorizing facts, geography facts, history facts, food, culture, you name it, knowing more facts about Spanish and Spanish speakers than anyone else in the state. First place is Amelia Chipman. Come on down, Amelia. The second category our students competed in was poetry. They had to memorize 2 poems and present them flawlessly and dramatically. Our winner for first place was Bella Kovacs. She couldn't be here tonight because she had to work, but Amelia will hold her certificate for her. The third category at state language declamation that we competed in was 2 partners speaking to each other on a topic they drew at the front of the room. They walked up, drew her topic, and had to talk on it. And first place for the state was Amelia Chipman and her partner, Scotty Grover. Come on down, Scotty. So that one is, okay, big spot. And the fourth category they competed in was speaking without a partner And the first place winner we had for that was Rachel Holmley, who couldn't be here tonight. But all of them studied very hard, many hours, and definitely deserve a hand for all their work.
Congratulations, that is amazing. I love how it's all in Spanish. Que bueno. Okay, sorry, get excited about that. Next, we have the ESP of the month. Core value, maintain high expectations and educational opportunities to inspire high achievement. Angela Palmer, Weller Elementary School nurse, will be recognized as the ESP of the month for April 2022. Kelly Thrun, Weller Elementary School principal, will make the presentation at the podium.
All right, thank you. I am delighted to present our nurse, Angela Palmer, from Weller Elementary School, as April's Extra Special Staff Person Award winner. Angela has served our school nurse as our school nurse for over the past 4 years with compassion, competence, and grace. We are so grateful at Weller to have Nurse Angela as a key member of our student support team and our school family. Just some of the words used to describe Nurse Angela are as follows. There is a steady stream of people into her office, and she has really taken charge of all things COVID, plus all of her other duties. She is doing a fantastic job to support and keep both students and staff safe and healthy. Angela is always concerned about each child's physical health and safety. She is very helpful to teachers that have concerns for students. She is on top of medications and will call teachers when they forget to send a child at the right time. Angela provides care for our students and staff with so much kindness and skill. She's a team player, always looking for ways to be supportive. She is extremely thorough in her documentation and follow through with navigating student illness and injury. Even in contentious situations, Angela maintains a strong sense of calm and professionalism that results in positive outcomes. Angela is the gem in the crown of Weller. She is patient, calm, incredibly professional, compassionate, knowledgeable. In addition, she has a sense of humor and passionately looks after our students. Angela has a genuine knack for reading students. She makes them feel heard and comforted while encouraging them to remain in school. Students connect with her. Angela is more than willing to help out anywhere in the school, often offering or delivering notes, fetching students and parents, or providing TLC. Our appreciation for Nurse Angela goes beyond words. She is truly an inspiration to us all and is Weller's extra special staff person.
Thank you so much. Next is the adoption of our agenda. Core value, center everything we do on the student and student learning. Consent agenda items marked with an asterisk are considered routine items not requiring public discussion by the school board. Unless removed from the consent agenda, asterisk items will be automatically approved when the agenda is adopted. Questions concerning these items should be directed to the administration before the meeting. If the superintendent or a member of the public wishes to have an item removed from the consent agenda, the request must be made to a board member anytime prior to the start of the meeting. The board member has the discretion to accept or deny the request. Only a board member may remove an item from the consent agenda. If an item is removed from the consent agenda, it shall be considered separately as the last item of new business. Asterisk items will then be adopted by one single motion. Can I get a motion?
Move to adopt the agenda with consent items.
Second.
Thank you.
Colonel Williamson?
Yes.
Thank you. Colonel Suri?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Doran?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Sanderson?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Marati?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Luke?
Yes,
Thank you. Motion carried.
thank you. Can we please get the presentation of the agenda items?
The board has accepted the following grant awards in the amounts of $7,500 for the BU Teen Outreach Grant from the Fairbanks Wellness Coalition from the Alaska Department of Health and Social Services per fiscal note 2022-46. $15,000 for the Youth Risk Behavior Survey Cost Recovery Grant from the United States Department of Education through the Alaska Department of Education and Early Development per fiscal note 2022-49, and $4,200 for the National Rifle Association Foundation Grant from the National Rifle Association Foundation per fiscal note 2022-51. The board has approved the district's federal program department request to send up to 30 students and chaperones to Anchorage, April 20th through the 24th, 2022, to participate in the Native Youth Olympic State competition, with the district paying all expenses through allocated funds specific to this event. And if any state or federal travel or health warnings are issued, students will not travel. The board has accepted the donation of $5,000 from Foundation Health Partners to the district's Career Technical Education Department to be used for health science, career cluster, activities, and equipment. $15,000 from the Chinook Montessori Charter School booster to Chinook Montessori Charter School to be used for a mentor trip to Washington, D.C., May 2022. $1,000 from Eielson Spouses Club to North Pole Middle School for the purchase of wrestling singlets. $1,000 from the EOSC Welfare Funds to Ben Eielson Junior Senior High School to offset the cost of transportation for the school's junior ROTC team. $3,000 from Young Smiles Children Dentistry, LLC, to Lathrop High School to support the school's ballroom dance team. $6,250 from the Tanana Chiefs Conference to Lathrop High School to support the school's girls basketball program. $2,000 from the EOSC Welfare Fund to North Pole High School to offset the junior ROTC cadets' travel cost to the air rifle competition. $5,500 from Little Lazy LLC to North Pole High School for the purchase of uniforms to offset the travel expenses for the school's track and field team. And $6,000 from the Alaska Community Foundation to West Valley High School to support the school's basketball cheer team. The board has approved the Personnel Action Report for the period March 11th through the 24th, 2022, and the minutes from the March 21st, 2022 special meeting and work session and the March 22nd, 2022 regular meeting as submitted. The board has acknowledged the Personnel Information Report for the period March 11 through 24, 2022, the board's reading file, and the coming events and meeting announcements.
Thank you, Ms. Meline. Next, we move on to public comments. Public comments on reports and non-agenda items, including input, ideas, and suggestions, are welcome and encouraged regarding the school district's fiscal year 2022-2023 school year budget, along with public input on salaries, benefits, and any other contractual items regarding the ESSA, FEA, and FPA negotiations. Core value: engage with students, family, staff, and community to support student success. Public comments on reports and non-agenda items are limited to 2 minutes per person for a maximum of 1 hour. People who have signed up in advance through the school board office to testify in person or by Zoom will be called upon first, and if time remains, anyone else who is in person will be invited to testify until the 1 hour time limit has been reached. A person testifying shall state their full name, spell their last name, and their city of residence for the record. Board members may ask questions for clarification. Although there is time at the end of each meeting for school board and superintendent comments, some concerns may not be able to be addressed immediately, as additional information may need to be gathered. Public input is welcome and encouraged regarding the school district's fiscal year 22-23 school year budget, along with public input on salaries, benefits, and any other contractual items regarding the ESSA, FEA, and FPA negotiations. We will start with Sandy Ryan via Zoom.
Can you hear me?
We can. If you'll state your name, spell your last name, give us your area of residence, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Sandy Ryan, R-Y-A-N, and I'm the Fairbanks Education Association president. I reside in Fairbanks. First, I would like to apologize for being unable to attend in person this evening. I am facilitating a national training for the NEA new local presidents. The Fairbanks North Star Borough School District and the Fairbanks Education Association has a very long history of working together to solve problems. We have worked together through times that appeared to have each side miles and miles apart. Yet we have found a way to find common ground by listening to one another. Just 3 years ago, this district received a state award from NEA Alaska for the partnership developed between its unions and the district. This is my 5th year as the president of FEA. For the first 4 years, the FEA found little need to file grievances. In fact, nothing was taken past kind of the in-house process, and very few went as far as that. We were able to, with great success, reach agreements through discussions and mutual respect. In the last year, unfortunately, we have seen a change. We currently have 4 unresolved issues. More than likely, 3 will be taken outside of the in-house process. We have long assumed that everyone has the same ultimate common goal, the very best education for our students. Having meaningful conversations, working the problem through, and not having to engage outside parties that take months to decide at added cost to both the association and the district is what is indeed very best for students. Turmoil abounds around us. We do not need to create more communication issues. Communication is the key. You have the opportunity to make sure that the staff and families impacted by the school closures communications are clear and consistent between those buildings. Currently, many of your employees feel less than respected. Please think about what your staff, students, and those families need over the next 60 days. This is true for all FEA members. Respectful dialogue is beneficial.
Thank you, Mrs. Ryan.
Not only for our members,
Sorry,
but ultimately for our students.
that's time. Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Ms. Marati.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Ryan. This is incredibly concerning and not something that we've heard of recently. That being said, can you give us examples of what we can do better, things that we can do to improve our communication?
Sure. I would love to tell you what you could do. Listening to the folks in those 3 buildings is critical. And it doesn't mean just a kind of a one and done. There's a concern that, kind of things were outlined maybe back in February, but this is a process that is, again, we're facing an unprecedented time that things change. And so then kind of rumors start, right? One person says something because they thought that's what they heard. I think that constant communication, that constantly updating, that constant compassion is what's needed for each and every person, really in the entire district, but special attention to Joy, Anderson, and Nordale.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for participating tonight, Ms. Ryan.
Yes, and again, I am very sorry I cannot be there in person.
We appreciate you calling in.
Thank you.
Next, we have Cheryl Hurley.
I don't see her online currently.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Janet Ferris. If you will state your name, spell your last name, give us your area of residence, and you will have 2 minutes to testify.
Good evening. I'm Janet Ferris. I reside in North Pole, Farris. As the Fort Wainwright School Liaison Officer, I would like to thank the school district for recognizing Month of the Military Child. As the month proceeds, it warms my heart for the military-connected students to read and see how they are being supported by their schools. To hear and see the excitement from these students demonstrates how appreciative they are for this wonderful support. This month is so very important because many do not realize that military-connected students move on the average of every 2 to 3 years in their school careers. They have learned to blend into each school they attend. This is how they cope. By the time they build strong relationships, it is time to move again. Then there are deployments, field work, trainings, etc. for the military family member to attend. These students often have their loved ones working away from home. Resiliency is the much needed for military-connected students. Many are not aware that in this school district, 3,800 or 31% of the student population is military connected. Many times, being a military connected student is not at the forefront of their school careers, but it does play a factor on their social and emotional well-being, as well as how they learn. This school district has done an outstanding job in letting the military-connected students know they matter and are part of the school district family. Because of this excellent support, 10 schools from this school district alone will be honored with the Alaska Purple Star School Designation Award on Friday, April 15th.
Thank you so much, Ms.
Thank you.
Ferris, for coming and speaking. We appreciate your comments and your testimony. Next, we have Nancy Duez.
President Luke, I'm sorry, I was just going to ask a quick question. of
I
Ms. Ferris.
apologize, Mr. Dorn.
Thank you for coming tonight, and could you just give the parameters, the standards for that purple, and I want to make, I'll let you say what the full title of the award is, the recognition.
The Alaska Purple Star School Designation Award. It is open to all schools throughout Alaska to apply. Some of the criteria is that they have youth sponsorship meaning a welcoming committee to welcome these students within the schools, that they are very aware of the federal and state laws that protect these military-connected students because of the unique lifestyle they live. It's called MIC3. It's very surprising how many are not aware of that. It's about receiving, the school staff is willing to receive training and continue to grow and develop and understand the military lifestyle. They have a designated point of contact that students and families are able to go to them so that they can have easy transitions from not just school to school, but school district to school district or grade to grade, and that they continue to grow and appreciate the military connected students. Those are a few things that are required. There's many more items also.
Great, thank you, and it's so great to have so many of our schools recognized.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now on to Nancy Duez. State your name, spell your last name, give us your area of residence, and you will have 2 minutes to testify.
Nancy Dewey, excuse me, D-U-E-Z, and I reside in North Pole, Alaska. First, I'd like to thank Ms. Tuttle for her years of service as district to the board. Her steadfast guidance is greatly appreciated. We'll miss you. Second, I'd like to let you know I didn't know Sandy Ryan was speaking tonight. I am here to speak tonight about the treatment of the staff members of the 3 closing elementary schools and 6th grade teachers from all elementary schools in Fairbanks. I am grateful that you quickly posted the new school boundaries so our students know where they will be attending next year. I only wish you would extend that same consideration and respect to the staff members at these 3 schools and all 6th grade teachers. You know that you need 5 6th grade teachers at Randy Smith, 8 at Tanana, 6 at Ryan. Why haven't any of those positions been posted so the displaced teachers at closing schools and current 6th grade teachers could apply? You've never even asked 6th grade teachers if they would like to remain at an elementary school or move to middle school. What does 6th grade look like at the middle school? Is it a team model? Is it a self-contained 6th grade housed in a middle school? Who knows? Middle school principals deserve to know staffing so they can work on their master schedules. You know exactly how many tenured teachers plan to return next year because you made them sign a contract stating they will be here in the fall. An unprecedented move on this district. So you know current staffing. You know how many classrooms at Ann Ween, Denali, Hunter, and Weller that are currently unoccupied or repurposed will be filled with students next year. All those classrooms will need a certified teacher. Why aren't those positions posted so displaced teachers can apply? Is it the district's intent to hold on to all those postings until July when teachers and principals have no choice in the matter? I would think principals would like to know who is going to be on staff so they can plan accordingly. In addition to these 2 matters, all non-tenured teachers are being made to make a decision concerning cash in of personal leave prior to knowing if they have a job next year. Of course, they'd cash it in if they knew they didn't have a job next year. They would probably carry it over if they knew they were returning and might need those days in the fall. At a time where a teacher shortage is nationwide and in this district, one would think teachers would receive a little more respect.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you so much for coming this evening and testifying to the board. Are there any other people within the audience who would like to testify? Seeing none, public testimony is now closed. Next, we have the Borough Assembly Report. Core value, engage with students, families, staff, and community to support student success. Kristen Kelly, Board Assembly Member, will provide the Assembly Report. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. Well, I'll start with, as you guys have just finished your laborious process of the budget across the river, we're going to take it up all the month of April and part of May. Yesterday, Mayor Ward gave a State of the Borough talk, which you can find on the Borough website. In that, he talks about some of the growth of the borough and challenges coming this next year. He also goes into great detail on how the budget process will work. We will take up the budget starting on the 7th in a Finance Committee work session. And we will actually have, on May 5th will be when the public can come for the budget hearings. And the 11th of May is when more comments can be, when more testimony can take place. June 9th is when the actual mill rate will be set. There's lots and lots of information on the borough website that talks about and even breaks down the budget process. Mayor Ward does some very nice, short and informative videos that link to YouTube and breaks down that process. Away from the budget process, my favorite committee or section is Parks and Rec, and there's still lots of time to get out there on those ski trails for this winter that seems like is never going to end. You can go out and enjoy some of the best skiing of the year. Also on the Parks and Rec side, if borough residents and the school board can be on the lookout, there's going to be a postcard coming out very soon, randomly mailed to borough residents. And in this, they're going to be conducting research about the recreation and wellness needs and desires of the community to build a multi-use recreation center. The name going around with that is the North Star Recreation Center. So there's going to be a postcard coming out, and if you get one, please fill that out so the borough can have some information to base its decisions on. Finally, it's National Library Week, April 3rd through the 9th. We're right in the middle of it. And on that borough homepage, if you click on the library link, you'll have a chance to win a free Chromebook and see some of the really special programming going on this week at the borough libraries. That website is fsnb.gov, and there is just a wealth of information there if anyone has questions on what is happening at the borough these days.
Questions from the board? Mr. Doran?
Thank you, Ms. Kelly, for being here tonight. I'm going to ask the question. I don't know whether you're in the position to answer it, but talking about budget and hearing the presentation the other day and what's coming is that first we want to say thank you to the Assembly for making a step forward, giving us, the district, a little bit more money than our request last year. A boost of $400,000. Really, really appreciate that step towards investing in our schools. But my specific question is that in our recommended budget that you'll be getting full detail on, we raise our request by $2 million, which is just status quo. And I'm just wondering if that's understood, that that's simply a status quo to offset what the state shifts because of rising property values.
Yeah, I'm well aware of that, but we haven't spoken yet as an assembly, so what's been released so far is the mayor's budget, and then we'll be taking up whether to contribute that extra $2 million, which isn't really extra.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Marotti?
Thank you, Ms. Kelly, for being here in person. I was celebrating earlier. I think this is might be a first, or it's just been a really long time. So thank you for being here. And for the listening public that may want to testify to the Assembly in regards to the budget, what dates would be the best dates for them to attend?
May 5th is when there'll actually be budget hearings. We begin work sessions, Saturday work sessions on the 16th. And I think they're open to the public, but I don't think they're taking testimony at that time. So May 5th would be the date to mark on the calendar.
And is that the only date? Because I think you mentioned May 11th as well.
So May 11th is for more comments that are not on the agenda. So if you were there on May 5th and didn't get a chance to testify, May 11th would be the appropriate time to come back and testify.
Thank
Give
you.
comments.
In the non-agenda comments?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions, or Mr. Doran?
For testimony from the community, coming before the hearing itself can also be advantageous if they want to share their thoughts as you're going into the budget process for the borough. Is that?
Yeah, so our next regular assembly meeting is the 14th of April.
Great. Okay, thanks a lot. And thanks again for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
Perfect. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for coming this evening and telling us about all the wonderful things with the borough. Next is the president's report. And tonight I'm going to make it very just short and sweet and to the point, and just say we are moving forward with our budget process. And on April 21st, we will be presenting our budget to the borough and discussing not just our budget, but what the borough will hopefully be able to give to the district. And then we are still waiting to hear back from the state on what their contribution will be as well. We continue to move forward with a lot of different things and a lot of different changes through our district this year going into next year. And we will continue to work with administration and to get more clarity and information out into the public. So I want to give our chief school administrator time for her report, including updates on school closure transitions, transportation, and the budget. Our goal and objective is to ensure students, staff, families, and the community are informed, connected, and engaged with the district. Chief School Administrator, Mrs. Moline, will provide her report, including updates on school closure transitions, transportation, and the budget. Mrs. Moline.
Thank you, President Luke. I would like to begin my comments tonight by introducing one of the newer members to the staff here at the district office, Josh Duval. Josh, if you want to stand and wave, is the new Director of Communications for the district. He's taking the place of Yumi McCall, who's moved down to Anchorage. And I just want to express my appreciation to Yumi for lending her support during this extended transition. And we're very happy to welcome Josh to the team. So with our transportation update, with the arrival of spring and breakup, our bus drivers have been working hard navigating the challenges of the roads around the borough. So that has caused some delays in our transportation, but our drivers are working through that and working hard to make sure that they pick up and deliver students on time and on a regular basis. Over the next couple of weeks, up to 10 applicants will begin their training process to become bus drivers in FNSBSD. On school closure planning, Joy and Nordale hosted transition events last week. That was an opportunity for families to come and learn more about their receiving schools. So at the event, the different receiving schools were represented as along with district office staff to give families an opportunity to find out more about their new school, ask questions of the district, and just have chance for conversation. So that happened this past week. It also gave the families an opportunity to find out more information about when those receiving schools would be having their open house. So that information was available to the families that attended, along with any other questions from departments here in the district. We continue to have regular meetings with the transitioning school leadership. And during those meetings, we get updates and share information. We have a project plan coordinator that is directing all of the work from delivering boxes to the timing of different procedures. We have in place assigned transition teams, which each school is assigned a transition team, which consists of representative from each district department to act as their point person for questions and concerns and processes and procedures. So for the budget, while we're working and waiting for the borough to work through their process, we continue to advocate in Juneau for the legislation that is out there. Both HB 272 and HB 273, which address an increase in the base student allocation. Just a few other things that are happening across the district. The 2023-2024 school calendar survey is available now. So if you haven't had an opportunity to do that, you can go online and participate in that survey. Staffing sheets were due today from principals, and we've started the staffing review process. That timeline was communicated to teachers and principals last week, and this process was moved back a week due to our accreditation reviews that are happening this week. I want to make sure that everyone knows that a draft math curriculum public comment time is open. If you would like to look at the math curriculum and provide public comment, you can find details on that on our website. It is the time for kindergarten enrollment, so if you know a family that has a kindergartner that's looking forward to school next year, make sure that they take advantage of early enrollment and go on our website and enroll their student in kindergarten. This next item that I want to talk about has already been talked about by our military liaison to Wainwright, and that's our Purple Star schools. I think the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District is a standout in our state and in our country for our relationship with our military affected families. And of the 20 identified schools in the state, 10 of them are from Fairbanks. So we represent half of those schools being recognized as Purple Star schools. On our list are Anderson Elementary, Arctic Light Elementary, Ben Eielson Junior Senior High, Crawford Elementary, Hunter Elementary, Lathrop High School, North Pole High School, North Pole Middle School, Tanana Middle School, and West Valley High School will be recognized as Purple Star schools. And finally, I want to just speak briefly about what's happening this week in our district with our accreditation review. This week is our virtual interview, our virtual visit from the accreditation team from Cognia. This is a K-12 accreditation process, which is somewhat rare. Traditionally, districts do a 9-12 or a high school accreditation process, but this particular opportunity, we are doing a system-wide, which is a heavy lift for our district, particularly this year with all the different challenges that have come our way. The purpose of this work is to embark on a continuous cycle of improvement across the entire district system. And that's helping us to identify our strengths and our areas for growth. Because of the magnitude of this work, I'm once again overwhelmed by the capacity and dedication and tenacity of the leadership in our district, both at the district level and at the building level. This is the culmination of about a year and a half or so work, and through some of the most difficult year and a half of the school district, and I hope the most difficult we ever see. So our interviews began today with the district team and board members. They'll continue for the next 2 days with interviews from teachers, principals, parents, students, and community partners. So we're looking forward to Friday when we have our final interview, or our feedback interview with the accreditation team. I'm very much looking forward to that. I was very encouraged today as we went through the process. And I would like to take just a moment to recognize Assistant Superintendent Luke Meinert, who has shepherded us all through this very long process and kept us on track and brought us home to this week of interviews. So thank you, Assistant Superintendent Meinert. And that concludes my report.
Ms. Marati?
Thank you for the report. We've heard 2 testimonies today regarding the school closures and our staff not feeling heard or respected. Can you take this time to respond to that?
Having not spoken to the individual educators that are not feeling heard, I can speak to what we have done as a district to reach out to those schools particularly and individually to listen to their concerns. We've met on a couple of different occasions with the staff of the building. We meet regularly with the building leadership to support them as they support their staff. The staff at Joy was in attendance. Some of them came to the transition event to talk to the district. So without hearing the individual teacher's story, I can only speak to what we have done as at the district level to support the building level leadership and the teachers during this transition. We're following our, I don't know if Executive Director of HR, Ms. McDaniel, has anything to add to that, as she's had any conversations with staff.
I have not had any particular conversations with staff in terms of staffing timelines to what Ms. Dewey was speaking of in terms of notices to employees. Staffing sheets from our principals, which simply mean let us know what your staffing needs are for next year, to which we staff and we look at movement of our staff in conjunction with that. We're due back today from principals. There are a couple lingering that have some questions that we need to attend to, but they were due back today. So we go and start our staffing review here this week, but we really hit it full force next week after the accreditation. We have days blocked off to review staffing, and we've already worked through the district-wide programs, special education, e-learning, and then we're also working on support staff at the same time. So we're working through the special education support staff right now, and we'll continue to do that over the next couple of weeks. So that timeline has been articulated to staff, to principals, to supervisors, and to the unions as well. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out. But we've always said, and we've been saying since November, December, that mid-April is the time frame, and that's really what we're geared up for.
Thank you. Mr. Dorn?
Okay, I've got a few questions, but staying on the closure topic, one of them was definitely, what is the process anticipated for staff, particularly in the closing schools, to get as early opportunity to know where they're headed, especially as they're putting materials together, their resources they're packing up, what they may need. And I've seen this as I've visited a couple of the schools in process, and I know the question has come up as well as tonight. So what's our process to help particularly those teachers who are having to move schools because they're closing?
So we've articulated from the beginning the process with the school leadership and the schools, in that we've identified sort of 3 categories of packing for a teacher. The first category is what that teacher would be responsible for. So that's their personal things, the pictures of their family, those special things that they were given personally throughout their career at their school. Those personal things would be what they are responsible for packing up. Anything else, any curricular materials, Mr. Beam has communicated, and the point people from Teaching and Learning have communicated that any sort of instructional materials, curricular materials will be packed by the Teaching and Learning department. So that's not anything that the school level staff need to worry about. So that will all be taken care of and then distributed to the building where the need applies. And then as far as any other sorts of furnitures or a lot of things have been purchased through Title I dollars, that will all be taken care of in the moving process by FMD. And anything purchased with Title I then would have to go to a Title I school. But all of that moving will be done by district staff and district personnel. So that's not anything that the teacher or the building staff has to worry about. We also have, like I mentioned, we have Dan DeGraw, who is our project manager on this. He has all of the different categories and all of the different expectations and processes and procedures for each building. And again, our transition teams, those appointed individuals, the point of communication for those, they're in place and in communication with those transitioning buildings. Did I answer your question?
No, I'm sorry, I must not have been clear. My main focus, I appreciate knowing the packing schedules, but my main focus is in terms of for staff to know as soon as possible in a very timely manner where they're going to be next year. We do know we have classes that are just going, basically, they're the same classes, they're just moving over to a school. We have others that are a little bit more complicated as to where students are headed to which school and which those openings with these staffing will be. But for those staff whose buildings are closing, the process for them to get as early an opportunity to know where they are headed.
So as Ms. McDaniel indicated, go ahead, Ms. McDaniel.
So just as I articulated, we were doing staffing review next week. So that's when we'll be able to determine where folks will be going. And that's when people will start to be noticed. So we don't know where people are going right now because principals have not fully completed their staffing sheets to tell us what their staffing needs are. So once we receive fully the staffing sheets, we'll go through those this week. And then next week on Monday is when we start our staff review process. So we will be able to determine based on district-wide seniority and endorsements and other factors of where teachers will be placed, and they'll receive notice from there.
Mr. DeGraw, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just to add to Ms. McDaniel's comments, it's important to note that this process has to wait until the board has completed the recommended budget process, because that determines staffing. We have to wait. We can't proceed with this process until that process is complete. And then once it is complete, the recommended budget, administration goes through an extremely complex process to make sure all of our ducks are in a row, all the I's are dotted and all the T's crossed to make sure we get things right. And so we're in the process, as Ms. McDaniel has articulated, we're in the process of doing that work, and we're going to have staff notified as soon as we possibly can of their destination for next year. But very important to note, the district isn't sitting on the sideline just dragging our feet. We have to wait for the process to unfold before we can take the next step. And those wheels are in motion now, and we're going to work as fast as we can.
Thank you. I appreciate the fact that they're in process. And I guess my question is, will those teachers who are being displaced in the conversation with FEA and for educator support staff, ESSA, will they be given priority for where their, options are made depend upon where they live? It might, there may be factors, but will they be given some priority so they can get early notification and know where they're headed?
There are many contractual factors that we have to look at before that. So we have to look at district-wide seniority, we have to look at endorsement, we have to look at their tenured versus non-tenured status. So no, that's not an automatic that teachers at the impacted school will have preference. And we've worked through that process with FEA, even at negotiations, and explained that and had a lot of discussions around that with bargaining. We've been communicating with the unions about this since the November timeframe, so everybody's well aware of the timeline and how this process will unfold.
Okay. And I guess, Ms. Moline, my thing with this, and then I'll pause, I have some other questions aside from this, that working relationship with FEA and ESSA is a combined problem solving to work out the process that benefits our staff and our students in our district?
Yes, we have ongoing regular meetings with FEA. The HR department meets with FEA on a regular basis. And so we've had all along through this process, we've had regular conversation with FEA and ESSA.
Okay, thank you. Do you want me to pause there?
Any other board members with questions? Go ahead, Mr. Dorn.
Okay. Also on school closure, I've been impressed in some of the schools that I've been at in this transition, seeing things that are being surplused and set in one area, things that are moving to another school, in another area, things that are going to stay with the teachers. I mean, the pallets and all of these things, the curriculum materials, impressed with that setup. My main question that came to mind is particularly with facilities department, what should we be aware of in terms of the support for facilities? They've had many cuts over the years, reductions, but to actually transport stuff so it can get from one building to another, the next set of materials can be, I mean, I'm seeing areas that are getting full. And one thing needs to move before another thing, and I know it's a big logistical lift, so I'm just concerned and interested in what supports we need. And I think I assume these have been factored into transition costs, but so that we don't wind up with bottlenecks. Where do we stand on that?
Absolutely. That's why we have an identified project management individual who's orchestrating all of the different moving parts. And he is in regular contact with the buildings and with those that are packing up. He's got a timeline. And just as recent as a couple of weeks ago, when we had our regular meeting with our 3 principals, they worked through some of that we need to get some of this out before we can go to the next stage. So all of that is being orchestrated through our project manager and those timelines. We will undoubtedly need to engage some movers to make the big push, so the timing can happen, because we just don't have the staff in our facilities and maintenance department to make that kind of an all-in push. So when the time comes, we'll engage those movers, and they'll help taking things to the places they need to go. So I'll stop there and see if Jay has anything else to add.
I do want to say that with our remaining custodial team, I think I'm echoing, we have sent out a volunteer sheet list. I'm hoping that we'll have some volunteers from schools during summer to help with the movement. So we've got 3 categories of, with the Anderson and Crawford movement, we've got an Eielson team out there, along with our 1 head custodian at Salsha that's going to help with the Eielson crew team. And then we're also looking into embarking a team over at Nordell. So we're looking at between 8 to 10 custodians. And we're also looking for volunteers for Joy. And if we don't get any volunteers, then we're going to go through the ESSA negotiated process and have a 5-day shift change. And then I also want to add that Ms. Moline mentioned about the phases. So the first phase that we're requesting is that teachers do box up their personal items or take them home as soon as they possibly can. But we're waiting until the end of the school year before we actually start making the big movement. So we've got a phase 2 and a phase 3. And so Dan DeGraw, our project manager, is in constant communication with the principals at the school. I know there are some schools that are already putting things on pallets and are sort of, ready. And then we're working with our shipping and receiving department as well to help ease those movements.
Mr. DeGraw, did you have anything to add?
Just the work of moving items between schools falls specifically on our warehouse department. That's under our purchasing department. I'm in constant contact with Ms. Proper, the director of purchasing and warehouse, and she is already looking into acquiring additional temporary help as well as additional moving services to meet that increased demand. So.
Thank you on that. And I'll look forward to, or perhaps to the board, and I know Ms. Moline and Ms. Luke, you'll be working together on this, an update on also how that transition for Nordell is going to happen with the repurposing and how the details will look at that. The other quick areas, shorter ones, are regarding budget, and really appreciate all the work that went into after our deliberations and approval of the recommended budget, which includes the CARES budget, and getting this booklet. And I know on the website we list out both, but I guess I'll just make a request through the president that we have not only the updated recommended budget book, but the CARES budget. And if we did have a sheet that really outlined them, but side by side, because they're all one budget. And I think that can be very beneficial for advocates who want to speak on our behalf to really know what the impacts of our budget are. And it's not just in this book, it's it's the whole package that we approved last week or the week before. So that, just a request that would be, I think, helpful to have that clear picture of the full budget and what the impacts we're facing this year. My last thing was on accreditation. I am really, really pleased that the district took on this self-study. And as I've visited schools and talked with people, yes, it's been a big lift, and it's been in process for a year, perhaps a little bit more, but, and as you mentioned, Mr. Minard has done. The one thing that struck me, and really thank you, Mrs. Luke, for those of us who were able to participate in the accreditation meeting this morning as board members. It was really a valuable time. But that when this is done, how we meld the accreditation, which really is that self-study, what we're doing well and how, where we want to improve, and our strategic plan, so that, and perhaps we can get a report to the board at one of our meetings, so that, as people say, all the work they put into it, and having been on both sides of the accreditation, you want to make sure that it goes someplace. And I think it does dovetail nicely with our strategic plan, but at some point, if we could have, that might be something very valuable to the board and the public to see how those mesh together, and that we make sure that all the hard work is not lost. It's not just something that goes up on the shelf. But I really want to give kudos to the administration for taking us on through a system-wide K-12 accreditation. I personally know what's all involved, so I have great regard for all of those who've been working on it. Thank you.
So just for clarification on your request for the list of items that we're spending on our CARES money, was that your request? How we're designating our CARES money, that list?
Yes, in relation to our recommended budget. Our recommended budget does not stand alone. It's not just what's in the book. It is our CARES that we approved in relation to this, and the understanding that, there might have been things, if we did not have CARES, we would be making different decisions here. But they go hand in hand. Some things we were able to protect, and choices between reductions that, really clear. So when somebody reads reductions in here, some of those reductions are not actual, but there are tremendous reductions that are made overall. So I think if we have that clear picture.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I believe Mr. Dubara had worked on that a little bit before. Does that help to clear that up?
Yes, thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, I think the better we can provide the clear information so that when people advocate on our behalf and we advocate, that we want to make sure we have the full picture and the correct numbers. So,
Ms. Marotti?
I wanted to lend my support for Mr. Doran's request, in case it's needed to be noted in regards to the CARES funds and general funds whole picture report, as well as a final report to the board about the accreditation results. I'm also curious, this new project manager that will be managing the moves of the school closures, this is new to me. I apologize if it's been brought up in the past. I'd like to know which department they will be working under, how much it's going to cost the district, and where the fund's coming from.
So Mr. DeGraw is an employee of the district already, and he has assumed these responsibilities on top of his regular responsibilities, and he does work in the facilities and maintenance department.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for your report. We really appreciate the time and effort you put into that. Next up, we have action item new business. Resolution 2022-18 in support of student success and state school district funding. Resolution 2022-18 in support of student success in state school district funding is before the board for action. Can I get a motion, please?
Move to approve Resolution 2022-18 in support of student success and state school district funding.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Marati, can we get you to read the resolution, please?
Yep. Resolution 2022-18 in support of student success and state school district funding. Whereas students are the priority of the Fairbanks North Starborough School District, and successfully educated students provide economic benefits to our community and state. And whereas public education is a mainstay of Alaska and America, and support of public education is embedded in Alaska's state constitution as a priority and responsibility of our state legislature. And whereas excellent, equitable, and high-quality public schools are attractive to military families and others who may choose to relocate to military installations or interior Alaska. And whereas the Fairbanks North Starborough School District has increased graduation rates from 73.6% in 2010-2011 to 80.7% in 2018-2019, and has decreased dropout rates from 4.2% in 2010-2011 to 3.5% in 2018-2019, despite yearly budget shortfalls. And whereas the state of Alaska has not raised the base student allocation for 5 years, creating a significant loss of purchase power funding to the Fairbanks North Starborough School District. And whereas in previous years, due to budget shortfalls, the Fairbanks North Starborough School District has had to cut foreign languages, fine arts, and other electives that enhance the students' learning experience. And whereas, in light of an anticipated revenue shortfall, current budget discussions have led to the closure of 3 schools, as well as potential class size increases, the elimination of fine arts programs, and the elimination of approximately 130 positions to include teachers, counselors, classroom aides, and other support staff positions in order to balance the annual budget. And whereas the state of Alaska is experiencing a financial surplus this year due to increased oil revenue, and the legislature is considering an amendment to appropriate $50 million of supplemental funding for Alaska school districts. And whereas House Bill 272 would provide for an increase of $278 per student to the base student allocation, BSA, over 2 years, and House Bill 273 will provide a mechanism to inflation-proof the BSA for future years. And while this will not totally replace the loss of funding over the last 5 years, it is a step in the right direction towards investment in education. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Fairbanks North Starborough Board of Education requests the Alaska State Legislature to ensure our students have the funding necessary to provide an education for their future success by passing HB 272 and HB 273, and be it further resolved, the Fairbanks North Starborough Board of Education requests the Alaska State Legislature to allocate one-time funds of at least $50 million of the surplus revenue to Alaska Public Schools to replace the loss of funding over the last 5 years.
Thank you. Before we go back to the board, is there anyone who would like to provide testimony from the public? Seeing none, public testimony is closed. Anything from administration, Ms. Moline?
No, nothing at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Marati, would you like to speak to this?
Sure. I want to thank Mr. Dorn for his help in writing this resolution. The board has been very active, and I hope that it's not misconstrued that the board hasn't been doing all of this. The board has been very active in their advocacy for an increase to BSA, for an investment in education, and for our students. This is just one more action that we can take as a board to show our support for investment in education in the state of Alaska. So thanks for hearing it.
Any other comments from the board? Mr. Doran?
I'm very, very much in support of this, and want to recognize the legislators who are also trying to increase funding to public education, including today, or actually it was yesterday, and they'll be discussing it tomorrow, some amendments which might even increase what has been projected for the BSA in the current bills. And in doing that, I wanted to move to amend, actually, it's 3 words. I think I can do it all in one amendment. It's just to make sure we're accurate. So I would move to amend in line 10, where it says 5 years, it should be 6 years. In line 15, it's the 7th whereas, to strike the word potential because we have increased class size. And in the 9th whereas, line 23, again, it would be 6 years instead of 5, the loss of funding over the last 6 years. Do you want those broken out? Well,
Second.
Mr. DeGraw.
Clarification?
Yeah, so, and this has to do specifically, Mr. Doran, correct me if I'm wrong, in the number of years that the BSA hasn't been increased. Is that what we're looking at in the 5 years, the 6 years?
it's been the same for 6 years. This would be the 7th if it goes into next year.
So,
Is that right?
no, actually it would be, if it goes into next year, it would be 6 years. So there was an increase in 17. From 16 to 17 it increased, so 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So as it stands now, it is 5 years. So if we're talking, and it will be 6 if there's no action taken for FY23. So there was the last increase was from 16 to 17. So there was an increase in FY17. So currently it is 5 years. And if they don't take action, it would be 6.
Okay. All right, since no one has seconded that, why don't I just change my amendment to,
Ms. Marati has already seconded.
And I second it because I think admin comes after the motion is amended and seconded, and then admin talks, right?
okay, then I would suggest that we defeat my amendment at this time. And thank you for the correction. It's good to know.
Mrs. Tuttle?
Colonel Suri?
Hey, just making sure I know I'm supposed to vote. I think I'm supposed to vote no because of the error. Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, no.
Thank you. Colonel Williamson?
No.
Thank you. Ms. Marati?
No.
Thank you. Mrs. Smith?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Doran?
No.
Thank you. Mrs. Sanderson?
No.
Thank you. Mrs. Luke?
No.
Thank you. Amendment failed.
And if I could
Mr. Doran?
move to amend by striking the word potential in line 15. That's the 7th whereas.
Second.
If I could just speak to that as I did briefly before, it's just that we have increased class size. It's no longer a potential.
Anything from administration?
No, that there has been an increase in class size. We've protected it through CARES, but still yet there has been an increase.
It doesn't look as though there are any other comments. Ms. Tuttle can, Ms. Sanderson.
Yes, can vote in support of this since I had discussed with you about, having a resolution come from the board. So I appreciate the work that was done to make this happen. Thank you.
Ms. Tuttle?
Colonel Williamson?
Yes.
Thank you. Colonel Surrey?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Sanderson?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Marati?
Yes?
Thank you. Mrs. Smith?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Doran?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Luke?
Yes.
Thank you. Amendment carried.
Thank you. So we are now at the main motion with the amended word of striking potential. Ms. Marati?
I just wanted to clarify in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the seventh whereas. Oh no, where'd Mr. DeGraw go? Okay, maybe someone else can answer this. In the seventh whereas, where it says approximately 130 positions eliminated, including the CARES funds that have then funded those positions, is that an accurate number?
Yes.
So that's 130 positions after the CARES funds have brought those positions back.
So the positions, there's approximately 70 positions funded through CARES. So that money is not a part of our general fund budget, but we cut approximately 60 out of general fund. So as a combination of those would be the 130 teachers.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Doran?
I just want to make a comment. I've been impressed by the number of people in the community who have approached me to say that they're willing to advocate on behalf of public education and to talk with the legislature and the borough assembly. And I think that's significant. And talking with people in Juneau too, legislators, a real overall general interest in realizing that districts are in a difficult situation. So I really appreciate the lift that is happening in the legislature, the lift that I hope we will see from the assembly. And I think this is a very important advocacy in passing this resolution for us because it directly impacts students. So,
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, Ms. Tuttle, can we get the vote?
Colonel Williamson?
Yes.
Thank you. Colonel Surrey?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Smith?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Doran?
yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Sanderson?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Marati?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Luke?
Yes.
Thank you. Main motion as amended carried.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank Mr. Doran and Ms. Marati for putting in the time and effort to get this onto the agenda. Next, we have information and reports. Renaming of Crawford Elementary School, core value, center everything we do on the student and student learning. The administration will provide a report on the prospect of renaming Crawford Elementary School, including the survey results of Anderson Elementary School, Crawford Elementary School, and Ben Eielson Jr. Senior High School students, families, and staff. Mrs. Moline.
Thank you, President Luke. Upon the request of the board, we did conduct a survey of the Eielson families, and you see that report there in your packet. And it's pretty self-explanatory. There was a certain number of families that were not in favor of renaming, and of those that were, the Anderson Crawford was the predominant choice. So, so with that, and with the comments from Colonel Williamson early on, it's the recommendation of the administration that that we do rename Crawford to Anderson Crawford in preserving the legacy of Major Rudolph Anderson Jr. And his contribution to the freedom of our country. So This is a little bit different than what we would have done with a total renaming, and that this individual was already recognized and named for his contribution. So with that, we'll entertain any questions about the survey process, or the district recommendation. I would also like to yield some time to Colonel Williamson if he would like to make any comments around this topic.
Colonel Williamson?
Thanks, Ms. Mullane. I really appreciate that, and I think that you nailed it. And in the discussion that I had with the principals and the on-base schools, the intent was to just retain that heritage of Major Anderson as the school shuts down, and bring that over to the combined effort between Crawford and Anderson. So I appreciate your work on this and for putting the survey out there. So I think it's important for the Eielson community to retain that heritage. So thank you.
So with that, we'll entertain any questions about the survey or the process.
Ms. Smith?
I just see that the survey seems to indicate that most people wanted to just keep the name Crawford, and just curious how much it will cost to change the name of the school and why we're going in a different direction than the survey.
As far as the cost, I'm not sure there would be any cost attached to the name change. There will be processes involved in identifying through state, because each school is identified by the name. So we'll have to go through a name change with the state. But that would all be a part of the closing of one school and renaming another. In looking at the survey results, we did consider the fact that a good number of the participants were not interested in changing the name. We had, looking at the involvement of the families and conversations with the leadership, the school leadership, it was just a decision, a direction that we went, taking all the factors into consideration.
Ms. Marotti? Oh, sorry. Ms. Smith, did you have more?
I'm just, I was not on the board when Midnight Sun's name was changed, and I just remember there was a lot of community uproar over the cost of the name change, and so I just don't actually understand why there was a cost to that name change and there's not a cost to this name change, I guess.
Well, I think one fundamental difference is that the school was going to stay in existence, so it was going to remain a school. So I'm guessing, because I wasn't here either, so I'll pull on some of our historical folks, but to rename an already existing school for it to continue, I would guess signage would be an issue, mascots, that sort of thing would be where the cost would be involved. There would be some signage adjustments to the building at Crawford, so that would be the primary expense, but I will call Assistant Superintendent LaPlante, I think, is our historian here. So if you could give us a little insight there.
Sure. I think that you're heading the right direction. There would be less cost associated with this particular name change than there was with other name changes, partly because we're really taking two existing names and combining them, and so we might be able to use some of the existing signage and repurpose that. There would be nominal costs that would be covered within probably the first year, things like the signage on the building, T-shirts, letterhead, simple things that can be done within the building. But once those are done, I mean, schools are buying new T-shirts all the time. It's just, they would redesign it to match their new name. And I don't think overall it would be as as large a shift, again, because you're combining two names that already exist, and so you might be able to use some of the signage that you already have. And I think that's overall makes it easier.
Ms. Marati?
I have 3 questions. The first one, it's under information and reports. So is this a board vote on this decision, or is this an admin role?
My understanding was that the board requested this process, and at some point, the board will vote on it. This is just the preliminary report of the findings, and later on, there would be a board decision.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned that the reason you didn't go with what the survey provided, the survey results provided, was due to other factors. Can you let us know what some of those other factors were?
Conversations with the building leadership and with Colonel Williamson.
And I have one more question if allowed. Okay, thank you. We received testimony that it would be offensive to combine the names as is being suggested by administration. Could Colonel Williamson advise on that perception?
I think your question is about which name should come first in the renaming. So I've got that question out to our historian.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I was unclear. I thought in reference to Ms. Smith's, wasn't it Badger where we had all the cost and that took some time?
It turned into Midnight Sun.
Okay.
And that was in the conversation about the process. It's really 2 separate things that are happening. Badger Elementary was going to remain an elementary school and continue conducting business as an elementary school. And that was a very different situation than we're closing Anderson, so it won't exist any longer. And the combination of the 2 names. And we also realized that in the transition process, the Anderson transition is quite different than the Joy and the Nordale transitions. For those families and communities in the Eielson community, it's really the merging of 2 schools, whereas with Nordale and Joy, those students are attending a number of different schools. So it is a little bit of a different process for them than with the other schools. And that surfaced pretty early on with our conversations with the 3 building leaders, that Anderson was a bit different process than what Joy and Nordale were facing.
Mr. Dorn?
So Ms. Moline just took my thunder, and pun intended. I'm supportive of this. I really don't have a question. I'm supportive of the Anderson Crawford and look forward to that coming forward to us for a board vote, because I do see it very much as a merging of those 2 schools. And we had 3rd grade in Anderson that eventually moved up to Crawford. Now we're just adding K-1-2 to that one building. And I went back and forth in my own head saying, well, which the order that should be there. And I just went alphabetically. I think it has a nice flow to it. And I think when we look at this really being emerging, the bring together of it'll be K-5 grades in one building, that it is really a smooth process, recognizing both these individuals who made great contribution to our country and to the Air Force, and that's the community that these schools represent. So I'm very supportive of this, and I appreciate the administration getting right on, getting a survey out, getting feedback, and I think it's a good balance there. So and having heard some of the conversations regarding Badger and Midnight Sun, there was a whole different discussion around Badger and the connotations there that it was before me on the board also, but I was in the audience for some of that. So, but anyway, I really appreciate the work on this, and it is really recognizing the coming together of our K-5 students in one building. And Anderson Crawford sounds perfect to me.
Thank you. And Colonel Williamson, thank you so much for looking into with your historian to ensure the accuracy of these changes. We really appreciate it. And if you could just forward that on to the board as a whole, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely, thanks.
It looks as though there's no other comments, no further comments from the board. Any further comments from administration?
No further comments?
Thank you. We are now down to board and chief school administrator comments and committee reports. And we could start with Colonel Williamson.
Nothing else to add, thank you.
Thank you. Colonel Surrey?
Nothing to add tonight, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Doran?
Thank you. On the committee side of things, I just wanted to announce that the policy committee was scheduled to meet next week, but that meeting has been canceled. We have no policies for their consideration at this time. And so rather than taking up people's evenings in the spring, we're going to wait until the fall, and we anticipate we'll have several policies coming forward to the policy committee at that time. But I wanted to thank the members of the policy committee for their time this year and the meetings we were able to take some action on, and great discussion, but it's a wonderful group representing a broad swath of our community. A couple of shout outs. I participated in the student art show at the Bear Gallery and sponsored by the Fairbanks Arts Association. Great work that's there, but again, it's one of those partnerships that's important in our community between our district and one of our community organizations. Appreciate the Fairbanks Arts Association for all their work in putting that together, and then having people come in and be judges for the different groups, but showcasing student work. And during a couple of my visits to schools in the last couple of weeks, I am just so impressed. It really was touching, going into classrooms, going into schools, the climate that's there for all the things on people's plates, and that's students and staff and parents and everybody. Really working hard to make connections when a principal can walk into a classroom and there's a little bit of banter between the principal and a teacher, between the principal and maybe some students, that show those connections, how the teachers working with the students. I walked into and I was doing K-12. So it was, and I saw it at every level. In a third grade classroom I walked into and had a chance, a student was presenting a project, presenting it to the class. At the end, then class members could ask questions or make comments. And then the teacher said, well, you know, as she introduced me, a school board member, she said, do you have questions for the school board member? And it was so impressive to see students taking skills they were practicing in class and turn them on me and put me on the spot, you know, asking questions, good questions, but listening. As they said, one of our skills, we have to be active listeners. They formulated good questions, they made good comments, and so it was great to see that straight from the classroom and skill development to practical application with a visitor to their classroom. Another class, and again, partially because of community partnership, the science fair a primary classroom that won an award at the science fair. Again, thank you to the community and the district for partnering together to have that. And they got a $100 award with their recognition. But those students said, you know, somebody else could use that better. And they're actually partnering to provide some support to Ukrainian refugees. And what's neat is the part of it is through a connection with a former principal and teacher from our district who is now in Europe and is actually working with some of the refugees. Those types of connections, those understandings that students have, and we see this on a regular basis in schools. So I just shared those two examples, but I have to say it's really touching to see the quality of our staff, the quality of our students, and certainly with the support of their parents and the community around them. And I really appreciate those principals taking time to tour me around the school and as we chat and their commitment to what's best for their staff and their kids and their community. So kudos to all those folks out there for what they're doing. And I continue to hear support from central office for what they're doing and trying to help them do things. So I just wanted to share that good news. It's good.
Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, President Luke. I'd like to give a shout out to Miss Mary McFedrick, North Pole High School, and the poetry slam that Superintendent, Assistant Superintendent Monarch and myself were judges amongst other professionals in the community. And it was really heart-wrenching to hear some of the deep thoughts that our students have, but how they articulated it and how they were just, able to stand up there and portray and share their poetry with us. It was really awesome and really called it an honor to be able to participate that and listen to the students. I'd like to give a shout out to West Valley graduate Corbyn Williams. I think he's graduated like 2 years ago. He just directed a not Broadway show, but he'll probably get there, a Connecticut show of Little Mermaid, and he's one of our graduates. So just shout out to that student and what he accomplished. Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Thank you. The district is currently revising its math curriculum. So for the curriculum committee, which will meet tomorrow at 5:30, we are looking for review and public comment, and you can find that on our website. If you could take a moment to look and provide the feedback. The public comment closes on April 15th. And there's a lot of other information about things that we're reviewing, some CTE and other curriculum that's being reviewed can be found on our website. But if you could please participate in the draft 3 public comment. Thank you.
Ms. Marotti?
I want to first thank the staff and families and leadership of Boreal Sun Charter School for taking so much time with me these last couple weeks and for inviting the board to such a beautiful school. I've learned a lot. And also I had the privilege of attending Fairbanks Academy of Children's Theater's performance of The Little Mermaid this last weekend. Many of our district students and families are involved in this production, and it was truly a joy to see them perform. Our parent engagement committee attempted to meet on March 28th, but we could not make a quorum, so our next meeting is scheduled for April 27th via Zoom. And lastly, I wanted to thank Ms. Luke for allowing Mr. Doran and I to be interviewed by the accreditation team. Today it was an honor to speak to them about the work that our district has done, and I look forward to the results on Friday. Thank you.
Ms. Moline?
Thank you, President Luke and board members. I want to just express the privilege I feel for being able to be a part of and represent and advocate for this district. In the last week, I've been able to be in Juneau, talk with legislators, advocate for our district, tell our story, along with two principals, Robin Taylor from Hutch and Carly Sween from Lathrop, where we visited different legislators and then had an opportunity to talk with them. I got back to Fairbanks, and that evening I was able to go and tour the after-school program at Ann Ween and see another one of the quality programs offered in our district, where students had the opportunity to participate in a variety of activities, from 3D printing to fencing. I was able to witness firsthand the culture that Mr. Angaik has created there in that school of respect for the students. The calm demeanor of and culture of the school was apparent even in the after-school program. And from there, I went to Nordale and was able to visit with parents, students, staff in what is a difficult process, and yet listen to the parents processing and making decisions that best fit their family, to watch both Miss Stacy from Joy and Brian Powell from Nordale lead their schools through a very difficult process. And I commend them for being the ultimate professionals in this whole process and supporting the district and the staff and the families. It's just an honor and a privilege to be able to be a part of and advocate for this district.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I'm sorry, President Luke, I did forget to acknowledge that our diversity committee would be meeting on April the 28th at 5:30 here at the district office and by Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. I just wanted to let the community know that the legislative committee members, we have been advocating, the board as a whole has been advocating, our administration has been advocating to our legislature. I attempted to go down to Juneau twice. Second time, got stranded in Anchorage. But please know that we are contacting them on a regular basis. We are calling, we are emailing, Ms. Moline was able to actually make it down there. And there's still another trip in the works to go down and advocate in person. We are grateful for the work that they are doing down in Juneau and are appreciative of their time and efforts to meet with us individually and to meet with us as a district as we advocate for our students, our educators, and our district as a whole, and our community. So we thank you all for that. Can I get a motion to?
Move to adjourn.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any objection? Seeing none, meeting adjourned.